Hello. Welcome to today's live, which is the case for homeschooling. If you know anyone who is interested in homeschooling, has maybe been considering homeschooling, this is definitely a great live to share with them. So share with any of your, there's an issue. There's an issue. Check Facebook. Carrie, could you let me know, or somebody text me personally and let me know if this is showing up, because I'm getting an error on Facebook. It's saying there's an error with the event that is not connecting. It says, please check the stream. And hopefully, if you guys can see us on the app, on YouTube and on Instagram, go ahead and say hello. But we are going to have to wait just a second to see what's happening with Facebook, because there seems to be an error.
Always seems to be. It's timing. Always
timing. Why don't you go ahead and start? Say something, babe. Talk about homeschooling. I've got to try to figure out the tech, but there's no point in both of us just staring at it. So.
Oh, okay. So we're live right now?
Yeah, we're live.
Well, welcome. I don't usually show up to these types of discussions, but I love these discussions. And I've been Rebecca had asked me to gather up some data and some links, and I was going through some links. I'm always interested in and how important it is, the alternative of homeschooling. Of course we're biased. Of course there's gather round, and of course we lean towards homeschooling. But let's truly get into some facts, some simple facts. I thought about getting some links, and there is some few sources that you might want to check out, and I'll cite them out. But one of the main things is for public school education, for that choice, you have 180 days for a normal school year. And you look on the average school day is 5.5 hours to 7 hours. Now that can vary depending on what type of school. And so if you multiply that, you get between, if you multiply the number of years, of course, of K to 12, you're looking at close to 12,000 hours with the choice of public schooling, of 12,000 hours of teaching time, of a teacher teaching your children a humanistic, secular, liberal, that has some connotations, but a very a worldview that is largely not a biblical way. 12,000 hours. So that's quite a lot when you consider, well, what else is your children getting from a biblical perspective? And if you look at maybe the half an hour to hour sermon on the Sunday or Sunday school, and you look at another maybe an hour or maybe 2 hours they get from a Wednesday youth night. Just looking at hours, 12,000 hours, or you're looking at 180 days that your kid is subjected to public school systems, which is, you can just, you can look through this myriad of examples of issues with public schooling and the anti-Christian humanistic. Well, what is humanism? It's just man's way of logic and reason and morality. Don't need God. We're going on our own way. We are doing just fine. Of course, we know that's just folly. So how am I doing?
It's good. It's good.
So if you look at what is our primary focus as parents, as parents, here we are. We've been given this gift of children to we hear these, raise them in the ways that they should go. and teaching them diligently in Deuteronomy 6:6. And I was looking at Deuteronomy 6:6, and it was, these words which I have commanded you today should be written on your heart and mind. You shall teach them diligently to your children, impressing the precepts on them. I'm in the Amplified version. Their hearts and his truths, and shall speak with them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the road, and when you want to lie down, and when you get up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and for them they shall be used as bands on your forehead. This is our responsibility to our children, our responsibility to teach them teach them diligently in the way they should go, in the ways of the Lord. And schools, you're basically giving that trust and that obligation and that responsibility to teachers. My question to those parents who are believers: how much do you really trust your school's curriculum? Have you read through it? Have you read through the school's curriculum? Do you have access to the school's curriculum? Because we hear stories that you don't even have sometimes access to the school's curriculum. What are they teaching? What are the discussions that are being discussed in the classrooms? Who is this teacher? What is their background? Of course, it's virtually impossible to get a 100% full picture of the environment, of the teachers, of the system. And that can only be, the only assurance that you can really have 100% is of course, if you take full control over the curriculum, you as the teacher. So what are your other alternatives? And so I was thinking about with private Christian schools. And with private Christian schools, really that responsibility, that onus on the parent to really truly teach them as the way they should go is really you're still offloading it. You're still relegating it to somebody else. Does that Christian school share the same theological views that they have? And people don't realize Christian schools are heavily bombarded with they're largely tied to federal and state regulations. I was just reading a plethora of information. A lot of Christian schools they're having lawsuits. And there are school boards. There's this one I read in the Boston area. There's this Christian school is trying to get started, and a Boston area school board has control over whether the school exists or not. And so there's a lot of opposition. So the other issue is cost. The average cost for a private school Christians, and this varies from region to region, is around $10,000 to $12,000 per child per year. That is a lot of money, and just unreachable. And of course, if you find the right school and you trust, and theologically it's sound for your own sake, for your own family, is there openings? Is there availability? How am I doing?
Yeah, if you're just joining on, we're talking about the case for homeschooling, and Jonathan has been sharing a little bit. We wanted to start with that why. I think that when you kind of hear that title, it's usually, I'm assuming we're collecting people who've been on the fence, who are curious to know why we may say that this is the better option. And I would go so far as to say we do believe it is the better option, that as Christian parents, there is a responsibility to train up our kids in the way they should go. And that's very difficult to do when, as Jonathan was explaining, if you missed it, the hour breakdown, how can we train them in the way they should go? How can we truly know our kids' hearts and raise them and disciple them when we're barely around them? So we do believe there is a case for homeschooling. We believe that as Christian families, it should definitely be one of the top contenders. It should be something that every Christian family considers. Now, we're not going so far as to say everyone absolutely must do it. It is the Christian thing to do. If you do something else, you're wrong. But we're asking, has it been considered? A lot of the excuses, I guess, that I feel like are given to me, or questions or arguments against, are things such as, my child, we believe that they are supposed to be a light in the darkness. And so we want to send them to school so that they can be a light in the darkness. And we don't believe that Christian families should keep their kids at home, because then they're not going out into the world. They're just like hiding. And I think some of that comes from a misconception of homeschooling. I think that some people see homeschooling as this weird, backwards, very stringent, very strict, very religious kind of movement, which maybe at one point it was, but it is no longer for many, many, many people.
Yeah.
And so when they think of that, they think that homeschoolers like hide their kids away from the world. And I agree that there is an element of, as a family unit, we are to be a light in the darkness, and we can't hide our kids from everything, because how are we discipling them and raising them to be able to stand when they do leave our home? But on the flip side, sending our kids to the front line of war is I would go so far as to say, well, it's dangerous. It's highly, highly dangerous, and for us, not something that we would do without very clear direction from the Lord.
Yeah. I mean, like as we said before, like if you think about per year, your child is being subjected to 1,000 hours of teaching, and what is that teaching? And I was going to pull up so many just examples, but I mean, it's a lot of the terms that we've now come to realize. Critical race theory and gender identity politics is very prevalent, and very, these are very sensitive, important topics. And is this a discussion that you really want a teacher, that you have no idea really who this teacher is? You have no idea about the curriculum, what they're supposed to. You have no idea what the state or the government wants to impose and wants to steer your children. It is a discussion. It's an important discussion. We don't want to vilify people. We don't want to guilt trip people and shame people and condemn people in terms of, even right here. But they are important discussions, and they're important truths, biblical truths. And I would say to believers that if you are putting your kids in school and it's like, well, I don't have time, I don't have the money, I would really, really encourage you to really think about how are you setting your children up in terms of their mindset, in terms of their soul, their mind, will, and emotions, and what kind of type of discussions. And I would say that you really don't really know what's going on, and knowing that, you can't always, do you really want to be willfully blind to that? And so these are important discussions. But how can you tackle 1,000 hours a year, and in the course of 12 years in the public school system? And now we can see some of the stats, I would say, can show. There's the Nehemiah Institute Peers test. I don't want to endorse this. I don't know their theological background and their denomination, but they have studied on an ongoing basis hundreds of thousands of students across thousands of Christian schools. There's also the Cooperative Institutional Research Program. Again, I don't know much about them. I don't know theologically and what denomination have. So just look those up. And
what do those studies say?
So the studies they show a concerning trend. One of the studies, the Cooperative Institute, show that again, that over a course of this last, I would say, the last decade, most students at the end of their beginning what do you call it? I forgot, the freshman year into university and colleges, they have and will adopt a worldview that's not Christian. I'm paraphrasing and I'm summing it all up. Whereas once they, raised in a Christian background, these studies have shown that there's a huge prevalency towards a viewpoint of humanism, of a secular worldview. So in essence, we're losing our children, our young people, to the worldview. By the time they reach that, so the results of public school system are not great for believers, for Christians. If I may be me, I'm paraphrasing. There's biblical theology, and then there's the humanistic secularism. And what is the trend? The trend is that more people are going towards this type of worldview, and that should be alarming. That should be concerning. We don't want that. And if you go further, of course, in the university and the college world, we know there's a plethora of things going on, a lot of shakeup, a lot of shaking, anxiety and fear and suicide is on the rise with students. And so what are we saying? What are we saying is that, like, let's go back to our responsibility as parents and when they're young children. Is sending them to public school, is it a good choice? Is it?
Hmm. Well, and I mean, like Jonathan had referenced even earlier, the point is that we have a tendency to kind of excuse sometimes. You guys, parenting is really hard. Let's just have a moment of honesty here. It's exhausting. It's difficult. It's hard. There is no break from it. It is a constant thing, day and night, any hour of the day or night. And it's human nature to avoid work. It's human nature to want to pass off responsibility, because responsibility isn't fun. It's not easy and it's not fun. And so there is our natural tendency as human beings is to off-put as much as we can. And so that might look like, sending our kids to school simply so that we can. And I mean, we've seen it. I want to go and do my own ministry, and so I'm going to put my kids in school so that I can pursue this. And I'm not diminishing. First of all, obey the voice of the Lord, but I'm also not diminishing doing ministry. I mean, obviously, what we believe we do here is full-time ministry, in maybe a different package, but it's full-time ministry. But I'm also unwilling that it come at the expense of my children and our family. That is our first priority. If we miss business meetings, important deadlines, big, important stuff that we know is going to have consequences, but if we know that the heart of our child needs something that we are not providing in this season or this time when they need it, we will drop that and we will make this the priority, because our home to us is the priority first and foremost in all of these things. I sometimes look at, the Great Commission. We look at, we sometimes have this mindset as Christians of outward, and that's the only thing that has meaning. And yet in the kingdom, we know that kingdom principles are almost opposite. And while the world says outward because it's what it can see and judges us by, the Bible and Jesus all the time talks about inward. He talks about the secret place. He talks about praying and hiding. He talks about fasting in secret. He talks about, first to your home city and then to the rest of the world. There is something to be said for first to our families, first to our children. How can we go out and disciple others when we aren't discipling our own children? And we're not trying to be harsh, but at the same time, I think it is an important question to ask: Are we putting responsibility somewhere else because we're perceiving something as being more important or valuable, when there is a multiplication factor of what can happen with your kids? What we're doing, what we get to pour out, is not only do we have gather round as part of the fruit of what we are doing in our ministry, but we have multiplied to 5 individual children and destinies who very likely won't end up with gather round, are going to go out and do their own ministry and have their own families and their own callings. And there's a multiplication factor that can be so much bigger than what just Jonathan and I can accomplish in our mere lifetimes.
I've shared some stats and some numbers, but if you let me just be out with it. Do you really, as believers, I'm talking to believers here, do you really expect, anything different from the world? Do you really? The world that does not know Jesus, that doesn't know the Lordship, does not know the gospel, do you really expect anything different? That they're teaching some gobbledygook, that they are teaching stuff that is just absolutely just out to lunch. Do you really expect anything different? When they don't know God's word, when they don't know Jesus Christ and have a personal relationship, and they're not a disciple of Jesus Christ, did you really expect anything different? And so your expectations on, while they're in a safe place, are they in a real safe place? While they're just sticking to the basic science, math, and social study, really, at what cost? because the discussions, if you look into the critical race theory, if you look at even science, the political, the gender politics of what they're wanting to change, the laws that are changing. I'm sorry, it is a battlefield, and it's getting uglier and uglier. Do you want your children to be in that battlefield? Now that's where we go into, if you are called to, and the Holy Spirit says, yes, my children are called to go into those dark places and to be a light into the darkness.
Then you better be sure.
You better be sure
that they are strong enough to be able to stand, that they have a root system that goes deep, that they are, the Shadrach, Meshachs, and Abednego's who, they may be young, but they've got a head on their shoulders, and this is what they feel called to do, and you're going to support them in it.
Yeah.
But to take our kindergartners and put them out on the front lines of this indoctrination that is happening.
Aside from indoctrination, we haven't even touched on, some of the, from in my day, it was, come to think of it, I was at public school full meal deal. But and you can say, oh, look how I turned out. But when I think about it, how many times I came up across such opposition to prayer in the schools. I remember my fellow Christian believers and friends. We fought to get a room in the school just to pray. We fought for it. And how many debating classes we were in, and it was basically the Christians against everybody else about abortion, about sexual immorality, about creation and evolution. Like we fought, and I felt like, no, it was a battle. And now I think, fast forward, as a police officer for 16 years, how many investigations I had in the schools. You will not believe, ladies and gentlemen, the horrors of what is in public school systems. I'll touch on a couple ones. One was sexual exploitation. It is the advent of social media and how people in relationships and boyfriends and girlfriends, how kids and children were being exploited with one another, showing all kinds of nasty pictures and broadcasting on the internet. There was extortion, and then there was exploitation. There was literally 13 and 14-year-olds that were pimping out their classmates, setting up meetings in hotels, on apps, and benefiting it, profiting from it. You think about exploitation, you think of some dirty guy in a van, some adult. It was children, it was young teens that were exploiting other teens, setting them up with the promise of a bit of money. And they look and they prey on certain kids that didn't really have a strong parental life, and they were exploiting other children. That was just a taste of what was happening. And I won't even say about like some of the investigations I had in the schools. I remember telling my wife, because we were way back when our kids were just coming of age, there's that talk about schooling. And I was like, I'm public school. and I was like, there's no way. There's so much evil going in and on in the schools. There's just, and I have friends that are teachers who are believers that are in public school systems, and it is a bloodbath. It is a bloodbath. And I don't want my kids anywhere near these environments. I'm sorry. And there's a comment here. Is it any different in the private Christian schools? I would say some personal experiences with your family. I would.
Well, yeah, even for myself, we'll just go with my own story. I was definitely bullied in Christian school. I would say that my Christian school experience was, and maybe it was just my class, but I actually know it wasn't just my class. Christian schools tend to be where people send kids who are having severe problems. They've probably been kicked out of other schools. They feel like they're running out of options. Now they are forced to pay and go with private education because they're hoping that there's going to be,
they will change them and
reform and so my class was incredibly rough, and I was severely bullied, and there was a lot of, the thing is it wasn't just rough kids. It was Christians. These were Christians. Some of them were pastors' kids. In fact, for sure, pastors' kids, strong Christian families. And there was a lot that I was exposed to in Christian school that I won't get into here because I know some of us have our kids watching, but a lot that came up that was, let's just say, impure, shocking to be coming from pastors' kids. You know, like it was.
You would think that having a Christian private school, your expectation. Now, we're not painting every Christian public private school with the same brush. Please don't misunderstand these comments or these experiences. However, as a parent, don't be fooled in thinking that, well, it's a Christian private school. They're not bound by state and federal rules and a school board, a local school board. You know, that Christian school might be contending and fighting with lawyers, and there for Christian values, for them to just leave us alone. We want to teach them on the way according to biblical principles, but it's a battleground. There are schools out there that are fighting and scrimping and just to exist and fighting against fighting for the scriptures, fighting for biblical principles.
Well, and when you have, you know, like even often finances is an issue, and maybe it isn't, and maybe because again, we've seen some schools down here that are charging such insane amounts. I don't know how parents afford to do that. I don't know how they afford to do that. And maybe for them, they don't struggle financially. But in our experience, we've seen a lot of Christian schools that do struggle financially because they're not getting that kind of support from the government. And because of that, then you might see compromise in even the quality of education or who they're having come in as teachers because they're desperate. So because they're unable to get, you know, people, they're now kind of opening the doors to get more and more people. So then you start to see compromise in other ways and aspects, not to mention the damage that can be done, like Jonathan was saying, theologically, doctrinally. I mean,
access to that, you know, there might be some good reputation, and there are good schools. Yes. Please get this clear. There are good schools, good Christian schools that are doing the work, that are doing the kingdom work. But does everybody have access to the school? Can everybody afford that school? Not everybody can afford that school. So are they, in my opinion, are they a viable solution? No, not for all. The cost alone, whether they're theological, to me, it goes towards, can you know for sure that this is the only way for sure to know that they have the proper teacher, the proper curriculum, whether they fall under your values, whether they're conducive of your family values, is that you do it yourself. Now, there are other alternatives. While homeschooling, there are hybrid schools.
Yeah, before we talk about that, I want to talk about how, like, even in the homeschool world, again, this whole, like, you know, I don't want the responsibility. And sometimes it comes from our own insecurity, right? Our insecurity that we don't feel like we can do it. We don't feel like we can do it well. We're not equipped. We can't, like, I don't know how to teach my kid this stuff. I don't know where to start. So we're looking for any alternative that doesn't involve us because it's terrifying. Okay, I know I'm talking to someone out there. So it starts off with, okay, well, things are really bad in the world. So I'm like, what about Christian school? And then it's like, oh my goodness, the expense, and I don't know. And, you know, there's stuff that's happening there too. And I'm hearing stories and I'm just not sure that that's the right fit. So then we think, well, I'll homeschool, but someone please tell me something that's like online where they have a teacher, someone they're reporting to that isn't me, because I just don't feel equipped to be able to do this. Someone please just take the reins. And I don't have anything against online schooling, online tools, online software, math programs, different things like that. But I would say that it is not a replacement for the education that can happen and the conversations. You guys, education, you don't have to have all the answers. And I, as a curriculum creator, hereby give you permission with my own curriculum. You don't even have to do the student workbooks. You can sit down. Do you know what I think is the most valuable aspect of our homeschool day is when we sit down and we read the teacher's guide together. And that's like one thing that I might use, you know, maybe an online thing here or something for this, but I refuse to give up everything because there's something that happens with just discussion when we can just sit around in a living room and talk, and how does this apply? And, you know, dad shares some stories of what it was like for him, and I share some stories, and we talk about it, and the kids are asking questions about theology and what does this mean? And just the discussion that happens in that place, that is to me the most valuable aspect of education. education, and it's just a conversation.
This is to me, the most important value is that this is our opportunity as parents to make disciples. You know, the Great Commission, you know, Matthew 20 is, you know, to teach them, to preach to them, to baptize them if you want, you know, to truly mold these children who look to you, and you are everything to them. And so, like, look, this is how Jesus is. And really, like, it's in your home, your family. It's how you shop. It's how you sit. It's how you go to bed, and how you know, if you look at our family and be in our living room, we're always talking about dishes, and we're talking who did what to whom, and working things out, and discussing things, and coming up with solutions, and looking at the Bible, worshiping together, having church together. This is to us the realignment of parents, back to the children, gathering around the family. The devil is always after the family. Why? Because it's so important to the kingdom. The family, the husband, the wife, the children. There's an order to it. There's a unity to it. There's an honoring to it. These are aspects of the kingdom. And when we start kind of like, okay, you know, relegating that responsibility, that opportunity to an institution, to a system, we lose out on that opportunity. There are great teachers out there. There are great schools there, but they're not all there. And there are fewer between. I would say very few in the public realm. I'm sorry, I'll go with that. I'm sorry. In my opinion, you got to really hear the Spirit of the living God and really search the scriptures, his word, to see if this is a right thing for your children. And you know what? I'm not saying that if you have a catastrophe and an illness, and you have something really good, and you need a break, and there's no one else to do it. There's no one else. And do I feel I'm compromising by having this option? Look, I don't want you to feel guilt and shame and condemnation. And you know, there are some times in which we need some help. That's why I think we're moving towards, you know, we also want to build a community. We felt, you know, when we come to Georgia, we want to build a community of people, of homeschoolers, but also some people who want to be in a community of similar, like-minded people who don't want to be alone. That's the biggest thing is you're alone in homeschooling. There's no one else around doing this, because they're the only weird one doing this one. Everybody's going to public school, and your rich friends are doing it in the Christian private school. There needs to be a community, and Rebecca and I are committing ourselves to some what we would call it, fostering this idea of a community of homeschoolers.
Yeah, and that goes into, I mean, even the model of when we say hybrid, I'm so hesitant to use that word, because what I've seen in hybrid is no different in most cases than a Christian school. Most hybrid models that I'm seeing, the only thing that makes them maybe a hybrid is less hours, which then they're saying still allows you to be able to do your own schooling at home. But essentially, it is still drop your kids off, pay high amounts, thousands upon thousands of dollars, full-on hired teachers, qualified, paid professionals. In my mind, that's no different than a Christian school. You're dropping your kids off and you're saying, take something from me, because, you know, it's a lot. And I understand it's a lot. And again, we're not trying to build a theology here around what you should and shouldn't do. But what I'm hoping to build, and what I believe is a model, I don't think that we are supposed to do this alone. And somebody said, what about high school? What about math? What about science? First of all, I will go so far as to say math and science, your kids only need to get through to a pre-algebra level unless they're going into something in college or university that's going to require it differently. In order to be a solid member of society and get most any job that they possibly want to get, they do not need all of that stuff. And the same thing goes with sciences. So there's a base level, I think, of what we need to get to, but it's going to depend on your kid and their goals as far as if you need to do even some of those upper level things. And a lot of them, in my opinion, if your child decides and you didn't provide that they want to do that, they can go and fill those gaps in 1 year and be able to do whatever they want. But I will say that there is an element of high school needing community,
Yeah.
needing connection, but I don't agree with this model of dropping your
No.
kids off. I think that, you
No.
look at the Acts church and it says there was no need among them, but it also paints this picture of this community where they were living together. They were helping one another. It wasn't just, well, you do this, and no, it was everyone bringing and pooling together their
Yeah.
resources and their time and their gifts and their skills and growing as a body together. And that's my vision for a hybrid school. It is parents getting involved, essentially more of a co-op model than anything else, where the parents are getting involved, where it isn't astronomically high cost associated with it. And we're pooling together our resources and saying, we want to be involved in this process.
Yes.
And raise our kids in the way they should go. And I
Yeah.
think there's a way to do that better than maybe even what we're currently offering in the homeschool market.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Like that's one of the challenges of homeschooling is like, where's the community? Where I need help. But really, did you have that in a public school? I mean, did you? I mean, there are some connections with sports and extracurricular activities, but let's be honest. I mean, really, did you really have that support in the public school system? And I'll flip over to the private school system, and I hope we're not tuning to we're bashing Christian public schools, but unfortunately, community. I mean, we're in Georgia. We've been here for less than a year, and we've been connecting with. My week is full. I take my kids here. I take my kids there. I'm shuttling in here. Now it's a full meal deal menu for what I can get my kids involved in with other kids, with other activities, worship and praise and discipleship meetings. Like there is so many things. Now I get to choose. I'm like, well, over here, not so much. I'm not okay. Or this is it's rather than being stuck in a system, stuck in okay, this is all what's been offered. You as a homeschooler have the flexibility of choosing what activities they get involved in, including sports. And there are homeschooling basketball and tournaments going on. Now, I don't have it in my local community. Yeah, it's time to, hey, who's around?
Build it. Build it, they will come.
Be a forerunner. Because you know what? There are so many people going to homeschooling, so many that are not even Christians.
And you guys, this extracurricular John was talking about, like taking your kids all these different places. I mean, a lot of families, they're taking their kids to school and then they're doing all that, or they're taking their kids to co-op this day and then this day, and then we have sports this day and we have this, all for the sake of community. That sounds really exhausting. That sounds like maybe it actually becomes more of a pull away from your life and your family than something that's filling in. And again, when you look at, could we not do something like a hybrid model where we come together and we have all of those things in like a morning aspect where it's got chapel and our kids are growing and they're being discipled and we're doing school and we're doing sports and we're doing extracurricular. And then we have the whole day and evening together as a family where we're not being pulled a million directions. There is part of the attack on family is to get us so busy and so divided. You're dropping this kid off here, you're going over here, you're driving over here, everyone's exhausted, your marriage is getting the absolute bare minimum, if anything, because you're just too busy running around from one thing to the next. I just think there's a better way. I think there's a better way. And I think even in the homeschool communities, we need to be contending for more. We need to say, listen, we're trying to take the world's model and we're trying to like fit that into homeschooling. Why not say, hey, we're doing homeschooling. Let's build a whole new model. Let's do something totally different. Let's do an Acts model of home education rather than trying to fit into the world system in a COVID co-op or whatever. Anyway, I'm going off.
Yeah, I mean, I really encourage you to just pray about it. Pray, is this the way? It's so easy to follow a system that everybody else is doing it. Most of my Christian friends, this is a good school. As an investigator, I would, even the scripture says, investigate everything, test everything. You'd be very, very surprised about there's no question the curriculum in the public school system. I'm sorry, no, it's garbage. It is absolute garbage. Um, Now, with your Christian public school, that you need to take a closer. What is being taught? What are the discussions? It doesn't line up, are the teachers qualified? That was some of the issues that our personal experience in terms of from other friends. There are some questions with, are the teachers qualified? Because sometimes there's a major teaching shortage nationwide in Canada, and private schools can't pay it as much, and so they're desperate. They get people without degrees and without the training, and they just you can pass a background check, here you go. Does this sit well with you? Um, the only person who's qualified that has the best interest at heart for your child, and if you love Jesus, and you want them to have even more of a passion, more of to live their life, the only real qualified person is you, as the parent. You have the best interests in mind. You want the best they have in Christ Jesus. They have no one else is going to have that gumption, that love, that dedication. You would die for your children. Mm-hmm. But would you put them in a dangerous place? Would you put them in a questionable place? I would say, I don't want to fearmonger, that every private Christian school has there are always weaknesses in every school. Some are stronger than others. If you want to be sure, do it yourself. Do it yourself. Buy your own curriculum and see. Yeah, you're going to read, and you're going to read every page. Can you say that the same in a Christian school? You're going to read. You're going to say every page, or your spouse is going to do that. Every page, you're going to know exactly what is going into the minds, the heart, will, and emotions in your child. And maybe you're going to see something. We're going to have a discussion about this because I don't totally agree with what's in here. We're going to have our own discussion. Are you going to? I mean, to me.
I want to address Jess's comment here. When there's no community, and we kind of referenced it, but specifically even talking about, okay, well, how do I even market to the homeschool community when there is no homeschool community near me? You may be surprised. I think sometimes there are homeschoolers, but they're just kind of hidden and isolated in their homes, probably feeling much like you. So for me, I'm always like, start a group. If there's none in your region, your city, your town, start a Facebook group, and naturally see if, because people search that. As soon as they're moving to a new community, they go on Facebook and they search for, homeschool group in Athens, and they're looking for what's currently out there. So start a group, see if you can start to, and maybe God has called you to be a leader and has said, listen, I want you to start a movement. I want you to go and talk about similar things we're talking about here, the case for homeschooling. Maybe you actually are going to need to build the case. You're going to have to, I'm just going to do an open forum about homeschooling. People have questions about it. People are curious about it. Even if they aren't currently doing it, they've probably considered it at some point, even if it was during COVID, and they think, I don't need to right now, but I'd be curious to find out for down the road. Ask the questions and have the conversations, because I think that people are asking the questions, whether you realize it or not. So that would be my first step. I would start a Facebook group. I would start doing some little coffee shop gatherings and see what, maybe you have to actually teach people about homeschooling and disciple them through that process and build the community that way. But I also want to leave you guys with this concept of, if you have had your kids in the public school, if you have, had them in a private school, if you have, and maybe they're older, maybe they're getting to that like 15, 16, maybe you're starting to see, or one of the reasons you pulled them out was you were seeing character or heart issues, or they were just, you felt like you were losing them. And we're talking about essentially losing them when they go to college or university. And so for some, I think it is a last ditch effort where maybe you didn't realize early enough, or, someone talked about something and you're like, oh my goodness. And it was a rescue mission to pull your kids back and do what you could in the time you had left. I just want to encourage you that while we know, and I think a lot of people look at our family and they say, wow, your kids are so different. And we do believe homeschooling had a big part of that. We know that the earlier you can train your kids, the earlier you can teach your kids, the earlier you can have these conversations with your kids and teach them critical thinking and talk to them about the Lord, that the easier it is to have their hearts. But even it is later on.
Yeah.
God is a God of restoration. He is a God of the miraculous, and he can take what seems impossible and he can do an amazing work. And we have seen it time and time again. It is never too late with God.
Yeah.
Never. It is never too late with the Lord. And so I just want to encourage you, if you feel like time is running out, especially as our kids get older, even us with our older teens, we're like, time is running out. Have we done everything we could? Have we put everything we could into them? And if you're feeling that way, I just encourage you that God is bigger than time, and he can do in such a short amount of time such an incredible work in the life of your children.
I mean, I'm looking at all the comments, and one suggestion I would probably have is, like, if you are connected to a really good homeschooling group, and you have a plethora of people that you can rely upon, and you have a lot of support, and you're enjoying the fruits of somebody at some point had to break out of the mold and say, I'm going to start my own group, or somebody had to start something. Somebody had to plant something, and then it's grown and everybody's enjoying that fruit. I would encourage some of the strong ones, start a new group. Start attracting the people who are maybe that need a little bit of help. Rebecca and I we want to create a community here, and there are homeschooling people around, and we bless them and we encourage them. But there are some ones that we want to create a certain group, and a certain style, and a certain, what do you call it?
A new model.
A new model of homeschooling community. And we want to duplicate that, and we want to spread that. We understand the pitfalls and like the daunting task of creating this community of friendships, and we want to duplicate that, because we want to have, hey, this is the way we did it. This is some suggestions and some pointers on how to create a community that will grow, that hopefully will grow, God willing, because we recognize there is a need for community. There's a need to create. And to grow people of similar aspects in life, similar ages. Like for us, we recognize there is a need in this certain group in the certain ages, and so what we're looking around. Well, we don't see it. We're going to do it ourselves, and because we feel compelled, and encourage you to pray and to seek. If you really are needing help, pray. God, I just need one person that is just nearby, that I can rely upon and just talk to about this. Now, I just have this image of, like, some parents in the public school, and seeing them, the absolute mess that's going on, in some of these public schools, and then, like, I say, hey, want to leave with me? Want to go start a homeschooling group, because this is terrible, and grabbing some curriculum and just doing it, just like working out the problems and working out. And I thought, like, just we're ditching this. Who's with me? In a way. What you reading?
I'm debating. Because there's the comments about high school, and I'm just debating. Do you want to read a little bit of it that you feel like is safe to read, or what do you think?
You just go at it. If you do what you feel.
I saw the high school comment. Mandy, do you have any advice for junior and senior high school parents who are scared? Yes, I do. You guys have to know I was homeschooled, right? I was homeschooled through to grade 10, and then I went to school for grade 11 and 12. So I was homeschooled as a teenager. I graduated when I was 16. I kind of have tasted a little bit of both, and I can say school was absolutely a horrifying experience for me, and that homeschooling was 100% what prepared me for life. And I think that the reason that I'm able to do what I do today with no college degree is because of the experience that I had and the ability that I had when I was a teenager to not be playing games, and instead of being so focused, all that's happening in school, by the way, in high school for the most part, is your kids are focusing on, how to be popular and who likes who and whatever else. I instead had the opportunity to work on myself and to grow in my relationship with the Lord and to develop a strong identity in Christ because I wasn't busy playing games. And I think because of that, I had a maturity and a strength to me that allowed me to get married young, have children young, raise them up young, start a business young, write curriculum, even though according to the world I'm unqualified. But I believe that a lot of that confidence and that boldness and that faith came from being homeschooled. So I think that you are actually uniquely equipping your kids in a very different way to be able to do far more than I think that a child who may go through the entire system and go and get a whole university degree and be able to get, you know, a professional career one day. I think that kids that are homeschooled have the potential to go in and say, I don't think in the box, and I'm going to propose something entirely new. Even the way that I think sometimes, you know, with this hybrid model, and I'm always thinking, how could we do new? How could we do different? I think that comes from homeschooling, because I wasn't taught to think in a box. I was taught to think outside the box, and there was no limitation to what possibilities there were. And so I think that you are uniquely raising your kids. And I won't read this whole comment, but there was somebody came to one of my sessions on high school. I have so much to say about high school. Somebody came to one of my sessions about high school, and I talked a lot about my my values and my opinions and my approach. And of course, I have high schoolers, so again, I think now people feel like I'm allowed to talk about this. And so they were very disappointed with my session. They felt like it was preachy. They felt like the focus, basically, so you're saying you don't care about an education, you're just focused on their heart and their character and their relationship with the Lord. Like, you're basically a terrible teacher, and who are you to say that? And I want to be clear that actually, yes, I really do truly believe that seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you. I believe that if I raise my kids to first and foremost pursue a relationship with the Lord and have strong character and have a strong and rooted identity, and to be bold and to be courageous and to think outside the box, that they are going to be able to do whatever they want to do, because education, they can go on, it's at our fingertips. It's on Google, it's on Siri. You can literally speak and be educated. It's so easy to learn. But teaching our kids how to learn, not just what they're being told to learn, but to find and pursue information, to discern and ask good questions. I don't think the world's teaching that. I don't think that most textbooks are teaching that. And I think that that is the most important thing, and that is actually what a true education is in my mind.
If you, this is going to seem harsh, but if you are valuing the high school diploma, and in the other sense, it's going to cost a piece or a lot of the hearts and minds of your children, and we're talking, you know, your Christian children, and they got all this stuff, all this, and you're costing them, but they have a high school diploma. Now think about that. At least they got their high school diploma, but you know what? But they have a secular worldview. You know, to me, it is like, are you even a believer? Are you? You know, I'm sorry. I'll go so far as to like you there's it's like, is that how much important it is to you? Where, you know, you can challenge a GED and get your, there you go. You think it's worth it? You know, like, given the stats, you know, read in the Nehemiah Institutes and the CIRP program, you know, that shows that, like, you know, public school, if the pathway is not very bright for Christian believers and having that worldview, you know, they're not equipped. The church is meant to equip and to empower and to send them out. But if you're sending them into public school, you know, public school system, and they're receiving all of this anti-God, anti-Jesus, but at least they have their high school diploma. I'm sorry. For me, it's, you can keep that.
It comes down to our perspective of education. And again, we can't fault all of us really for having this perspective of education, because it's how we were raised. But when we view education as mere facts and quantity over quality, when all it is about is how much you know and how much you can reiterate, but we've lost the heart. We've lost the heart and connection with our child. They've lost the ability to be able to connect with the Lord and even see how it all relates and how it all makes sense. We've lost.
Yeah.
We've lost. Like, that is the most important part. And I think, and I'm not saying that education doesn't have value as far
you
as
want a doctor to have
information.
qualifications. You want to have a lawyer, professionals to have an education. Don't get me wrong. Like, you want some competency. You want them to have wisdom. But there's these short years, these precious years, precious ages, and to throw your children and advocate your responsibility onto teachers that are not Christian, are not you got to have 3 dreams and a vision before you. I'm sorry. Look at the lay of the land. Look at all the battles. Read the news. Look at all of the controversies and teachers that are on TikTok and all these, they're not just in the states that are, no, they're in the southern states. They're in what you think is conservative states, and they are on missions. They're on missions to win the hearts and minds of our children, to steal them away, to say, you don't need God, you don't need Jesus. We have reason. We have our human reason, our human knowledge. We don't need God. You got to have 3 dreams and a vision before I put my kids in that type of war zone, bloodbath. And I'm being harsh. I'm sorry. It's the truth. It's the truth. And universities there's shaking going on in universities of activism and the cost. You're paying for it now. Public school system, at least it's free. Now you're paying for children you got to have a mission and a mission from God and a call that they're meant to be a doctor, they're meant to be a lawyer, they're meant to be a scientist, they're meant to be an engineer. Not just, I've been to university, I know what's going on the first and second and third year, even your bachelor's degree. Most of it is just to get away from the parents, live off of student loans.
And spend a lot of money figuring out what's
sorry, that's just a way. I mean, back way with that. No, it's a lot of money. What's it, like 20 grand tuition now and up? Student loans and being in debt. The Bible. I'm sorry. There's sometimes where, if you want to be a doctor, but you got to make sure that is this God, or is this just me just want to get in the way?
So again, teaching our kids to hear his voice, teaching our kids to discern, teaching our kids to think critically, all of that. And when they're rooted and grounded in their identity in Christ, then now they're going to know, I know what I'm called to do. I'm not going to waste my time doing this. I'm not going to waste my money doing this. I know what I'm called to do, and I'm going to walk after that. When you talk to our teenagers, and some of them, they're going to be talking a little bit at some of our conventions and different things. But when you talk to our teenagers and you ask them, okay, are you concerned about getting a diploma? Are you concerned about college? Are you going to go to college or university? Are you, they're like, I'm not spending my money on that. I know what I'm called to do. Life is too short for this. I'm doing this. I know I'm called to that. They may not have it all mapped out, but they know that they're made for more. They know that their purpose is made for more, and they're not playing games. And I think, to me, education is the easy part. Truly, I truly believe education is the easy part. You can get an education anytime you want. You can, it's a lifelong thing too. It doesn't just have to happen here. It happens your whole life. The most important part is that rooted and grounded identity.
Yes.
So that no matter where they go or what they do, they know who they are, they know to what they have been called, and they can walk forward in the identity and the purpose that God has for them.
Yes.
And if we fail there, we fail. And so that, to me, is the crux. That is the most important part of it.
Yeah, I know we've gotten a bit heated. I wish I'll say this. I'm holding back. I am holding back. Some of this awful stuff that's going on. The enemy is after our kids. The enemy is after their kids' soul. This isn't a game, and you got to know the cost. You want to know the cost it is to get that little piece of paper which can easily be obtained through just challenging or taking a year course at a college, and then there you go, GED, there you go, same equivalent. And if you, and then what is that? And of course, I want a kid to have a college degree. Things are changing. It's not like, when I was in school, when I was in university, get a university degree, because that's what everybody else is doing. That's how to succeed. The rules are changing. Things are shaking. People can create businesses and be entrepreneurs and have $1 million business with an idea, and they don't have a master's in business. They don't have that. In fact, universities come back to them when they're dropped out, and they're like, "Oh, here's an honorary doctorate. Here's an honor," because they need to justify themselves. And don't get me wrong. Again, universities have a purpose, but this purpose needs to be ever more so clear. Given look what's happened last year and this year. Some of the most prestigious universities, and some of the stuff that's coming out and being revealed and exposed. Good at being exposed. You're sending your kids to that and paying a premium for they better have a purpose. Sorry, go ahead.
I saw another comment here. What about, and it always comes to this, like GPAs, transcripts, I want my kids to go to college, or they want to go to college. We hear everything you're saying. My kid wants to go to college. They want to go to university. How do we get there with homeschooling?
Easy.
It depends. It depends where you live.
Yeah.
Up in Canada, it's not as easy. You have to teach approved curriculum, and that's for many charter schools, which is like a cover school. So that's a school where you're assigned a teacher that's overseeing your work. You have to meet certain criteria that is the same as what other kids are learning. You can use some curriculum, but again, they're looking at it to make sure it checks off their boxes, and then they will make sure that you're getting approved. But you don't have to do that in many places, in many provinces in Canada, as well as in most, I would say, of the United States. You are able to make your own transcript.
Yep.
So to do that, you're calculating how many hours your students are spending on their different subjects, and hours equivalent to credits, and you're marking different things to assign grades, and their grades equivalent to GPAs. And at the end of the year, you're putting together a diploma for them. Some places you actually literally order a diploma for them. You name your school. Each different state has its own rules. And so that's something you're going to need to look in for yourself. Is it possible? Absolutely, it is possible.
Yep.
But you need to understand your state or your province. You need to understand how it works in those places. And you need to figure out, what can I do while having the most amount of control over my child and over their education, and allowing them to have the most amount of control over their education in the future? How can I go about this while still honoring, obviously governmental requirements? So take a look at that in your area. HSLDA is the website that you want to go to, and they have what the different requirements are for state. Yeah. But I'll even say for you, like, we're here in Georgia and we're getting to know how things work here in Georgia. Doesn't rate very well as far as being homeschool friendly. And everyone I talk to here is like, it is the most homeschool friendly place. But when you look on HSLDA and you look at the requirements, it seems stringent. But when you actually understand and get to know, and this is why it's helpful to connect with local homeschool communities, the way that it's worded is you are required to have a certain number of days. You are required to have a certain amount of proof of education. You are required to take testing every 3 years or whatever it is. However, you do not have an obligation to show that to anyone. There's no one that you're necessarily reporting to that is overseeing that is, so it's not the same. Whereas you might live somewhere like New York or California, where there is someone you are reporting to, where you do have strict, regulations. So you need to know your state. You need to know what is required, but it's possible. It is possible.
It's not impossible. It's not, and many. I would say it's easier than you think. You're going to have to do some homework. You're going to have to do some due diligence, but there is a way. Even if it comes down to, okay, your kid's going to go to community college and do some courses and then do it and get the piece of paper, so that they have opportunities for other things. That okay, all right. But there are ways. There are ways, and that's and in my opinion, easy ways. It's better than the alternative. To me, it's that bad. It's that bad. And if you don't know, I mean, Rebecca said you do some, links. I was just flooded with some of the gross catastrophes that are going on. That's going on in public schools and universities, but public schools, universities, you know what? They're adults. They're gonna, it's a different battleground. But here, I just no. What's the,
Yeah. So I mean, as always, check. Like I said
Yeah.
with HSLDA. I mean, go. It's a resource. Check it out. I'm not sure how often it's updated and all of that, but also I would say find your local or your state or your provincial homeschool group.
yeah.
Ask questions there. The homeschool community they're
It's
eager.
they're
They're
so,
eager. They'll hop on there and they'll help you.
we've traveled from Texas to Tennessee to Kentucky to Michigan, like all over, and we meet these fantastic organizations that have fought the good fight of fighting against the state, fighting against, and then hiring lawyers for the rights to teach their children the way according to biblical principles. Look them up. You don't have to plow a new path. There's some people that's already laid out to work with you and say, this is the law. This is what our obligations are. This is easy. We're going to help you do it. That's why I love going to these conventions. They plug you into some of the people that know what they're doing and know where you want to get this. This is how the way to get there. I would say that those are good resources rather than going to, right to the state and asking, well, I'm planning to homeschooling. Look, you're going to deal with a world system. Deal with some believers that have done this for organizations been around for decades. They're wonderful organizations.
Awesome. Well, it's been an hour. We're going to wrap this up. We will post the replay. I know that it didn't necessarily show up in all the places at all the right times. So we will post the replay for it. But a few things. If you like what we're saying, if you want to learn more, if you want to get to know our family better, any of that kind of stuff, we have gathered in his name is our 2024 in-person family ministry event. And while we will talk about homeschooling our very first day, we're having a talk kind of like this, where we're going to go into all these questions that we're talking about for new to homeschooling. Most of this is not really focused on homeschooling. It's focused on deeper than that. It's focused on families. So the theme for this year is restore. And I believe that God wants to restore relationships. I believe that he wants to restore hope. I believe he wants to restore identity. And so we're going to be diving really deep into just a journey, really. Each session is going to build on the session before, and it is for kids and it is for parents. It will be for marriages. It is, I believe it's the entire family unit. And we did have it as $139 for an adult ticket and free for kids. But as we've been praying about it watching registrations, we really felt like it was important that as many people as possible could come. And we recognize that, it's expensive. Travel is expensive. Bringing your family is expensive. Hotels are expensive. Things stack up. And so we decided to make it free, which is a very costly event. And we are going to do an offering, which we're not a nonprofit. We are a business. So we will have to pay taxes on whatever that offering is and claim it. So it's not quite the same as a church that does this or a ministry that does this, but we are going to do an offering just one of the nights. And we're just going to trust in the Lord. So if you were going to pay money for a ticket and you could afford it, you could maybe, contribute in that way during the offering.
Buy some curriculum.
But we want to open it up for everybody to be able to come. So what we are asking though is, I know when stuff is free, it's so easy to be like, oh, I won't register, or I'll register later. Please register. And then if you can't come, please cancel because we do have a certain number of tickets and we don't want to turn anyone away. And it is helpful to know those numbers. So share it with your friends, share it with family, share it with anyone that you know who their family needs ministry, connection between siblings. I think it's going to be a really powerful revival style weekend. And
we prayed about it. And by the way, those who have paid for their tickets, you're going to get refunds.
It's already done.
Already refunds. And so I really prayed about it, and I felt the Lord saying, just make it an open hand. And these are tough times, and this is an election year, and there's a lot of turmoil going on. But we really want to feel that we want to start investing into this awesome community in Athens, Georgia, and have an open invitation, and to foster and give encouragement, and to bless people, and to encourage people, and you're not alone. And we feel that we will bear the brunt of this expense. The business will do this, but it's because this is what we feel that we're called to. We're called to bless, to encourage, and that takes money. And we've rented a very nice place called the Classic Center, and it's right in the middle of downtown Athens. And we want people to meet other people. We want other people to enjoy worship and have. We're going to have church. We're going to have some church, and we hope that we know that you're going to be blessed. Please come, say hello, so we can meet you guys, and you can meet our children. You can meet us, and we're going to have ministry time, and there's going to be details of what's happening and what we believe will happen.
It's gonna be good.
Okay.
So check that out. And then the other thing is that we also did announce that we are doing a sale. So we kind of periodically do these, and there hasn't really been a rhyme or reason about it. We just pray about it each year and ask the Lord, and based on our needs. And as you know, we are trying to build a building, which we're trusting the Lord to provide. And so we are doing our back to school sale at the same time, and we're going to be doing it. So this is a July 18th to 20th is our event. And we're going to kind of end the sale at the end of our event. That way you can come, you can see the books, and we will have physical hard copy books available that you can buy and take, which will save you on shipping. So you can learn more about that. We'll be posting. I'll send out a newsletter tomorrow. We may do another quick live explaining another few updates, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that, because it's going to be similar to, kind of what we're doing here. And I do believe that it is going to be a powerful weekend. We're talking about maybe doing some baptisms. I don't know what the Lord is going to do, but I think it's going to be powerful. And I think not all around for our children, for connection.
We encourage you to bring your children.
Yeah.
We're not going to have children go to Sunday school, adults are going to be preached at. No, this is for children. This is for young people, young teens. We want the Spirit to move, and we want the word of the Lord to be relevant, and what is He saying? What's the encouragement? We want people to have hope, and if you're not homeschooling, if you're not a homeschooler and you're kind of interested, in seeing what this community is all about, come. This is not just for homeschooling families. This is for people who want ministry and are interested in the ministry of Jesus Christ, and are interested in what is education going on? How's the Lord dealing with strategies concerning families and children? So it's free.
And yes, there are, for RV parks, I'm not sure, actually, I don't think there's a lot. There are some around Athens. I know there's one near the stadium. I don't know much about it. But the one I do know, and where we stayed when we were scoping out this area, is the KOA and Commerce, which is only 20 minutes away. It's
only 20 minutes. It's a straight shot right to Athens. But we know it's in the middle of July, so plan ahead.
So book it now if you are looking at that.
So RVs, and we didn't do the whole blocking with hotel things, because we didn't roll with that one. So plan ahead. We're going to tell people now so they can plan ahead, so that it mitigates the where you can stay and where you can eat. We're going to have our staff too. You get to meet our staff. We're having our staff.
Not all of them.
Not all of
some
them.
of them, though. Yes.
Some of them. Some. All of our staff is going to me. But we're having some key staff people come and helping out with the event. Welcome.
And we are super excited. We have a couple coming from California to lead worship. We've got Andrew and Rochelle Hopkins. So we're really excited to be able to, just minister and see what the Lord is going to do. But I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend. And I would just encourage you to pray about it. Ask the Lord. Yeah. And if you're supposed to come, hopefully we've made it easy for you to do that. And find a way, because I just see, when we travel around, we meet families, and it's so easy to think, well, I'll protect my kids from all of this and I'll homeschool them and they won't face anything. Yes, they will. They're going to face it with friends. They're going to face it when they go out. The enemy is going to still try to attack. You don't think he's coming after our kids? He's coming after our kids.
He's coming after our kids.
So we have to be diligent. And the people that come up to us, the kids that come up to us with anxiety, with depression, with suicidal ideations, you guys, homeschool kids are facing incredible opposition, and we have to start battling. So this weekend is a battle. Yeah. This weekend is a battle for our children. It is a battle for the next generation. It is a battle for the family. It is a battle for marriages. And so I just encourage you that if you feel that burning in you and you feel like, man, I just need to be there, come. I believe that God will provide a way for you. I truly believe, even if you're like, I don't know how we're going to afford it, I believe that God will provide a way, because that is what he does. He is our provider. And so, yeah, I just have big faith for this weekend.
Yeah,
so,
and we want some testimonials. We'll share some testimonials of what God has done thus far for us are here. We still have many more battles to go. Please pray for us. We ask, please pray for us. Pray for everything. But he's provided so much too. Like, we have the land to build our publication company, and we have plans drawn up, and
just need
we just need, you know, that we've gotten some bids on some buildings and structures, and there's been some eye-opening expenses, and but then again, you know what, we don't want to do this on our own strength. It's like we believe in the provision and faith, and so we walk by faith. And I know it doesn't make sense maybe to hold an event for free, but you know what, we prayed about this, and it's like, yep, this part is going to be for free. And this is God's company. We always believe that this is Gather On as God's company. And he's the CEO. He is our leader. He is our everything, our Lord and Savior. And when he says to do this, okay, we will do it. And
awesome. All right, hour and 15 minutes. It is time. All right, thank you for joining us, you guys.
hour and 50 minutes.
Join us next week. I don't know if you guys know, next Monday is a solar eclipse, and there's a lot of people with bated breath that are watching to see what happens. There's a lot of rumors going around. There's a lot of blog posts being written, and a lot of prepping happening in this season. I'll put it that way. And so we timed this, and we're going to be doing worship and just prayer, and truly maybe a little bit of a preview of the family ministry weekend. We're just going to worship out in our living room and as a family, and we're just going to pray over you guys. So if you got prayer requests, I just want to stand against fear, and I want to stand for hope and what God has for us in this coming year with expectation. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to face dark times, but I really specifically chose this week to be, this next week to be worship and prayer, because I feel like, yeah, that's how we want worship to be our warfare. So join us for that next Tuesday, and it's going to be in the evening. So check that out. And then the week after that is going to be the teen Bible study, which I got to remind my teens about. So lots of good stuff to look forward to. And we hope to see you guys there. All right. Bye.